Double tablet. Okay. Yeah. So E for enteric, T for typhoid. So very sick person must take double exercise, or according to well, double exercise, it's very peculiar to remember it. Double tablet, yeah, like we gave her double tablets. That's another thing. So that mnemonic. So very V is varicella. S is scarlet fever. P is pertussis. That is the third day pertussis. And fourth is person must. That is measles. Take is typhus. Fifth. And sixth is dengue. Double is dengue. And exercise is enteric fever. So this is a mnemonic to understand which day of fever, which rash. If you see rash on this day, it is this problem. This is a very rule of thumb, and we do not know what is the evidence. We really have to go through this. But medicine is full of such rule of thumbs and textbook rule of thumbs, you can call it. Classical things. Like at the bedside, we like to practice those, but they may not be very scientific, but yeah, sometimes they help us a lot. So, which day of fever did she develop the rash? Same day of fever. That means varicella is very high on the chart. Varicella is chicken pox. That means if you are touching her, you will get chicken pox. Even if you had it for 1 month. Are you sure she had chicken pox? Oh, she has chicken pox. Then you kept her here. Everybody will have chicken pox. That's okay, but still. So when did it happen? Which day of fever did she come here? Okay, so that was 12 days back. So that's good. So yeah, so can she be still infectious after 12 days? What is the infectivity period for chicken pox? Yeah, I think it's 1 week only. 1 week. Hopefully, yeah. So we are safe. And we don't see any lesion also on her. Everything has subsided. Very good. So that's a very nice chicken pox. Very, you cannot take the patients at all. Very careful. Very careful. You have to put it down the lamp and then. So don't keep changing your, cameraman, because then we will be in a soup. We are training our cameraman and suddenly you change. Then it's a Okay, so she had epistaxis after that. Why? Oh yes. So after varicella, this patient is developing a bleeding disorder, bleeding from nose and mouth. So what is the reason for that? What is the reason for that?
Thrombocytopenia.
So platelet is reduced, 37,000. So she is having bleeding because of thrombocytopenia. So why is she having thrombocytopenia? What could be the reason why thrombocytopenia? Okay, does varicella virus cause thrombocytopenia just like dengue virus does? You know that dengue virus, or has she developed another infection by dengue?
Dengue was negative.
Yeah, after she came, dengue was negative. So what is the sensitivity, specificity of dengue test to say that this dengue negative is actually false negative, but she is actually dengue positive? 50%. So how is she now? Is the fever continuing? Is the fever continuing? Is the bleeding continuing? What is the current platelet count?
64,000.
Okay, so from 37 it is increased to 64.
14,000.
It went to 14,000. That was very low. And then
14,000.
did we give her any platelets?
After transfusion.
Why did we have to transfuse for 14,000? So she was also having bleeding. Yes, that's the reason. Okay, so basically we helped her by giving her platelets while she was having bleeding, and that stopped the bleeding. And now she is free of bleeding, isn't it? But we don't know why she had the thrombocytopenia yet. Was it dengue? So how do we diagnose thrombocytopenia? So we have to look for different causes of thrombocytopenia, and that's very simple because in medicine there are only a very few causes in medicine. One is inflammation. Now the inflammation can be because of either infective agents like
Dengue.
like viruses, and viruses can be dengue, CMV, whatever you have read in your book. The entire microbiology book full of viruses. And bacteria, it could be bacteria also. So all the bacteria that you can think of, you just think of them and see whether any of them causes thrombocytopenia. And then fungi or protozoa, all of them can be responsible for any problem in medicine for that matter. So infective agent is one. Infective agent causing inflammation. Now what other things causes inflammation which can destroy the platelets? This is also called as immune mediated inflammation. So where we do not know the cause, why it is happening, we say, oh, it's immune mediated. So immune mediated thrombocytopenia is the last diagnosis which we give once we have ruled out all other causes. Now what are the other causes in medicine other than inflammation due to immune mediation or infection? What are the other causes in medicine? It can be due to trauma, it can be due to a congenital problem, it can be due to a toxin, it can be due to neoplasia. So congenital traumatic inflammatory neoplastic. So if you remember this mnemonic CTIN, the entire medicine is in your hands. You don't need to read anything. Just see patients, read them like textbooks, and just remember CTIN. That's it. Everything ultimately boils down to this. Medicine is so simple, and at the same time so complex, so beautifully complex. Because each and every patient will have something. So to bring you to the context, we do not know why he has got the thrombocytopenia. We can always say, okay, if everything is ruled out, it will be immune thrombocytopenia. Isn't it? So what are we doing? We have already started treating without knowing the cause. Most of the time we are treating without knowing the cause. So we have just helped her with her platelet count. Her bleeding has come down. So it's a big help. In spite of her not knowing what we are doing. We have really helped her. And so we still don't know what is the cause of thrombocytopenia. So what will we do now? We will just wait and watch. We will see whether her platelet again comes down, whether she needs again platelets or she needs something. And then if we are sure that yes, there is no other reason for her thrombocytopenia, no neoplasia, no trauma, no infection, so it must be immune mediated inflammation. So then we will start on immunosuppressant. So that's a long drawn process that might happen over the coming few months. So that is how we will look at it. Okay, so let's move over to the next patient. This patient. So first time treated diabetes, and then he has got jaundice as well.
He has complaints of yellowish discoloration of eyes, like acute viral hepatitis. We were thinking this would be.
Yeah, we were thinking of acute viral
He
hepatitis.
sent LFT outside, but there's no enzymatic elevation, but bilirubin is 8.6.
Yeah, so 8.6 bilirubin without an enzymatic elevation, without any other history of liver damage or liver failure, unlike the other person. He doesn't have liver failure, but he has a increased bilirubin. So what is the bilirubin like? Is it indirect bilirubin? So unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia without any liver failure or any inflammation, without any STLT rise. So what could it be? Ajit. Unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia without any STLT rise. Very common. Yes, so it could be due to reduced glucuronidase transferase activity. So when the glucuronidase transferase activity is mildly reduced, then it is Gilbert's. Like if the jaundice is between 1 to 5. But in the other hand, if the glucuronidase transferase activity is moderately reduced, like from 5 to 10, then what is it called? Crigler-Najjar type 2. And if it is not absent, glucuronidase transferase is absent in the body, then the child doesn't come out. That is called Crigler-Najjar type 1, hydrox fetalis. The child doesn't come out of the body. Mother story of glucuronidase transferase. So, is it a glucuronidase transferase which has just got, which we need not be bothered about at all? Which actually, for the context, all these students who are here, the 53 and 73, basically the entire batch, 5 people amongst you are Gilbert's or Crigler-Najjar who have this problem.
1:500.
Yeah. How much?
1:500.
1:500. I thought it was 5:100. This is a congenital problem, nothing to worry about. Diabetes.
ఫస్ట్ ఆ కేసు డయాగ్నోసిస్కి వెళ్ళాలి ఒకసారి ఆయన దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళి
Yeah, we found that he had a pain abdomen where diabetes, where the pancreatic cells have been affected. Type 1 diabetes, what happens? There is just like COVID is also known to cause type 1 diabetes, we think. In the last 2 years we have seen. I mean, it's probably causing an insulitis, inflammation of the beta cells, and causing diabetes. Just like COVID does that, we see a lot of first time related type 1 diabetics with COVID. We think they are type 1 or they may be type 2 also. And this patient, he is already having ketoacidosis. So did he have COVID which got undetected and he has actually got the diabetes because of that? Could it be? So COVID, the most important thing would be fever and some upper respiratory complaint. So there is nothing like that. Nothing like that. So that makes COVID less common. So then the other thing is just there in your textbooks which have been poorly identified. Really don't know which viral antigens are instigating the immune system to cause insulitis. Insulitis which gives rise to beta cell dysfunction and diabetes. Yeah, so because he has got jaundice, because he has got diabetes, we're trying to bring in a differential hemochromatosis, which is because of infiltration by iron into the pancreas as well as the liver. That would be very advanced if it has to cause this. Very advanced disease. And looking at him, he doesn't look like an advanced disease of anything. Yes, he has the diabetic ketoacidosis, which means the pancreas has been sufficiently damaged to cause ketoacidosis, but the other organs are not involved.
When is the usual first time presentation of Gilbert?
Yeah, Gilbert's usual first time presentation is you just get yourself, somebody says, oh, you're having jaundice, but you're not having any other problem, maybe you're fasted. So you get your test done and you find that there is a unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia.
Age of presentation.
First age of presentation. That can be detected any time, at any age.
Because it's first time.
Yeah, it can be at this age also. This age is not nothing against that. So I would put my money on diabetes type 1 and see as to what goes on. But what is the cause of this type 1, which antigen, how, we do not know. And we will also keep on following up his bilirubin and seeing. It will also give us some clue whether he has got hepatitis or anything else. Currently it looks like no
Maybe
hepatitis.
hepatitis, sir, initially, then he enzymatic.
Yeah, so maybe he had hepatitis earlier when he had anorexia. Now his hepatitis enzymes have come down very quickly.
But still, because of the cellular damage, indirect bilirubin is
Yeah, generally it will be direct, but yes, if you have an additional problem like some G6PD deficiency, then you can also additionally hemolysis. Hey, why is there so much noise in the ICU? Other than us who are creating music, the cells will function well. And that's called a honeymoon phase, and after some time, suddenly the honeymoon will be over and he will land up in again diabetic ketoacidosis. So one has to only follow up and see, look at his honeymoon and everything. So we'll see. Now one of the UGs will take.
ఈయననే కదా ఇందాక.
So when he came to us, he was an altered sensorium, having irrelevant talk, isn't it? And he was not very drowsy, of course, but he was completely talking irrelevant. And now, and still he is talking irrelevantly. But at that time, he was also having other problems. Like what was the other problem? He was not sitting like this in a chair. Right now, he is sitting comfortably in a chair. So what were the other problems he was having at that time? Yeah, at that time, anybody remember him? Anybody has seen him to present KV? KV?
First you?
చరణ్ అన్నదా? ఓకే.
She's talking to the attendant.
Yeah, but who knows about him?
Sharon. Sorry, Sharon.
So ideally, the ICU intern should know about him. Tejaswini. What can you tell us about him? You were supposed to have come at night and taken all the history. Then will you be present in the daytime?
అకౌంట్.
When if you come at 9 o'clock, how will you know?
It's a retroviral positive patient.
So this is another patient of ours, a prize patient who is retroviral positive. Now not that retroviral, the retroviral which requires highly active antiretroviral therapy. Like what kind of antiretroviral was he on? That lady was on tenofovir, lamivudine and dolutegravir.
He's also
He is currently on the same, but what earlier? So how much did he take and what was the dose and since how long?
for only 1 day.
ఎన్నేళ్ళు పనిచేసిండు ఆ మందులు వాడతాం 6 మంత్స్. అప్పుడు ఏం పని చేసిండు? ఆ గోళీలు ఉన్నాయా? అప్పుడు ఏమేమి వాడిండు?
ఇంటికాడ
6 మంత్స్కి
వాట్సాప్.
Yeah, he had stopped his medication for 6 months. There also you saw they had stopped the medication for 6 months. So when you stop the medication, the body's defense system, which was previously taken up by the retrovirus and reduced, the CD4 count was reduced. Now again the CD4 count, which has increased because of the anti-retroviral therapy, will again come down. So once the CD4 comes down, there is opportunistic infection. So we think that this last 10 to 20 days when he came to us with fever, altered sensorium, and probably even neck stiffness, neck rigidity, he was actually having a meningitis. So this patient was having meningitis secondary to a immunosuppressed state, which was again secondary to a retrovirus. A very, very celebrated retrovirus in the last 40 years.
He was also having paraplegia, sir.
And he was having paraplegia also. And that paraplegia, is it still there? Is he able to walk? Nadustara? Nadavatle. Linchodara?
No, sir.
So even now he is unable to stand and walk because of the paraplegia. So why did he have the paraplegia? So what are the causes of paraplegia? I won't ask Tejaswini. Srija. Srija?
Kirti.
Kirti.
Can we think of cause?
Yeah, so paraplegia, what are the causes? See, we just showed you the formula in medicine. Anybody asks you a cause, you know what it is. Is it clear? The first thing is, but here that formula will not work. Here you have to wonder about anatomical areas. So when you think of paraplegia, you think of the anatomy. Like what is the anatomy and physiology of the nervous system which can cause paraplegia, quadriplegia, or hemiplegia. So basically, the anatomy and physiology is starting from the brain stem, spinal cord, and then peripheral nerves. So that is what these students have also learned, isn't it, in the anatomy. So if you think of that anatomy, you have to make first an anatomical localization or an anatomical diagnosis. Which part of his anatomy of the brain stem, spinal cord, peripheral nerves is involved here? So how would you make that out? How did they make it out?
Motor hormone. Human.
Yes, very good. So in the for all these students who are there listening to us right now, they have also been told about upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron lesions. How to clinically make out whether it's upper motor neuron or lower motor neuron. So Vaishnavi will tell us how we clinically made.
Human region usually have weakness with hyperreflexia, increased tone, and element regions usually have hypotonia with low power.
Right.
And
So
also
tone.
absent
First and most important is the tone. So element will be this patient.
hypotonia.
Huh? Was it hyper or hypo? Was it hypertonia or hypotonia? How do you know? Can you demonstrate the tone to us? Yeah, that's a very good thing. So now we will demonstrate to the students whether the tone is hyper or hypotonic. So kunjam there. And that causes inflammation. That causes thrombophlebitis. So now he has got another problem on top of his paraplegia. So first we have to know whether he is okay. KV, would you like to demonstrate in this leg? Huh? So if a person is hypertonic, it won't fall like a log of wood. Okay, so without injuring him, there's a blister also. See, new things have cropped up after coming here. This is a blister.
మొత్తం ఎన్ని రోజులు బెడ్ మీద ఉండే
This blister could be because of an infection. So you must realize that this patient is highly immunosuppressed. So he is very prone to infection. So he is developing infections here. And if this blister spreads like a gangrene, we'll have to cut his limbs. And then there won't be any paraplegia because there's no limb. Phantom limb is what we have. So one thing I'm trying to demonstrate to you is how the legs will fall when I release it. So of course I'm not going to make it touch the floor because that will break his leg. You'll have to be very careful to catch it before it falls. But what I want you to see is how it falls. Does it fall like a log of wood or not? Okay. Yeah, you be back up for me. Yeah, see, it's falling like a log of wood. If it was a hypertonia, it wouldn't have fallen like this. See, it is hypotonic. See, it is just falling like this. It is hypotonia. See? It's hypotonia, isn't it? Okay. So he had bilateral lower limb hypotonia. That is the reason he is not able to stand. You know, when you have hypertonia, you can stand. You have power 3/5. You cannot stand. Because of this hypotonia, everything, there's no current in that. So this thing about current brings us to the next thing, how to demonstrate whether there is current or not. Because in lower motor neuron lesion, when there is the peripheral nerves are involved, even if it was upper motor neuron, it would have been a brain stem, spinal cord. But because the peripheral nerves are involved, the current in the peripheral nerves will be shown to be zero. Absent. Yes. So how to test the current? What is this? We are all like electronic technicians here. The neurologists are basically electricians. So we have to show something. Put a galvanometer here and see the current. So what is our galvanometer? Ravi, do you have the galvanometer? Neurology. Ravi is a neurology thesis going student. So he always keeps a galvanometer with him. What is our galvanometer? It's a very, very analog device, no electricity involved, because all we do is we stimulate electricity here, and that electricity travels to the spinal cord and then comes back. That is called then it comes back and manifests as a contraction of this muscle. So if I give a current here, the current goes to one of the sensory nerves, goes to the spinal cord and comes back and manifests as a contraction of this muscle. It's called a reflex. That is the way. Basically, it's like testing the circuit. This muscle contraction is the galvanometer.
Fine.
Yeah, the kata as they call it. So let's see if it contracts. Where is the? So okay, let's test his knee reflex. If it is there, then it is not a lower motor neuron. Isn't it? So simple to diagnose in medicine. Everything is so simple. Okay, so this is the tendon where I have to hit, and this is where I have to look. You see the tensor fasciolata here. So this is the muscle tendon. So I am hitting. He is having a little bit of pain. Okay, what? కొట్టలేదు మీకు టెస్ట్ చేస్తాము టెస్ట్ ఇది టెస్ట్ జస్ట్ ఒక చిన్నగా టెస్ట్ ఒక చిన్నగా టెస్ట్ చిన్నగా
పోతారు నాకు
చిన్నగా
నేను వద్దాను గులుపు కాదు నేను వద్దన్నా శరీరం బాగాలేనప్పుడు ఏదన్నా మొదలెట్టి తయారుస్తాను కానీ ఇక మనకు
తెలుస్తుంది మేడం తెలుస్తుంది చూడక
కాళ్ళలో శక్తి వచ్చిందో లేదో చూడాలి కదా.
మేడం నేను చూసిందంటే చూడు అటు మాట్లాడు
శక్తి వచ్చిందో చూడాలి, టెస్ట్ చేస్తున్నాం.
ఇది టెస్ట్ So you see, I am hitting, I am not getting a response here. Normally, if I had a normal person sitting here, if I would have hit this, I would have seen a beautiful contraction here. So it's not there. So this is showing us that he had hypotonia and he had areflexia. So this hypotonia areflexia is the hallmark of a lower motor neuron lesion. And what he has is got a peripheral nerve lesion. Isn't it? So what you are seeing is the paraplegia is because of peripheral neuropathy. And what is the peripheral neuropathy due to? Again, some virus or something which has instigated the immune system attack the myelin sheath of this patient. That is causing this, and this is also known as acute inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. This was first diagnosed by two third semester students who made a e-log. And what was their name? Does any of
fever, water sensor, and parameter change.
yeah? So
They
just
have fever, but not the
yeah. So along with